Good afternoon, all of you. A very warm welcome to all of you to our live phone-in program of CIT and CRT. I am Sabila Rashid, and today our topic of discussion is teaching of language with specific reference to English language teaching. We have Professor Sandhya Rani Sahu with us, who is Professor of English in Department of Education and Languages, NCERT. We welcome to our show, ma'am. In today's episode, we'll talk about significance of language learning, first and second language, and the other aspects of English language teaching. Ma'am, to begin the conversation, I'd like to ask you, how are languages learned?
Suppose I'll ask you a question. How did you learn your mother tongue? Your mother tongue is Urdu.
Yes.
So how did you learn your mother tongue?
I learnt it by my parents. I mean, they kept on talking. I listened to it first, and in broken language, I started speaking.
Exactly. So when the child is exposed to language, when you talk about language learning, the child has to be exposed to language continuously, and we call it immersion. The child has to be immersed in the language environment, and the child acquires the language naturally. The way you learnt your mother tongue, you listen to your parents when when the child is born, since your birth. Your parents, they started speaking to your elders, your grandparents, your siblings. They start talking to you. They start, using different words, make different sounds for you to listen to them, to look at them, to look at from where the sound is coming, direction of the sound. So gradually, continuously, you are exposed to the words and to the language, and but this continues for 1 year almost.
Right.
The child listens silently and tries to associate meaning with the words that he or she has listened to, and then one fine morning starts babbling. Talks about mama, dada, nana, titi, didi, like that. The child starts producing words, and after that gradually more language the child listens, and the more the exposure, the better is the language acquisition.
Right.
So not only at home and outside also, not only at home, outside also, in the playground, when they go to the shop, when the child is actually playing with his friends and listening to stories, when the grandparents and parents, they speak to him, the child constantly being exposed to a particular language. Okay, and gradually, once the child is exposed to the language, the child starts acquiring.
Right.
Okay, and there is something in the mind, we call it the innateness in every human being. The child starts processing the language,
right,
and tries to produce it, because human being, we are gifted by God with this chord,
right,
that we can produce sounds.
So it's basically like imitating their parents and the sound that they are
imitating the sounds.
Right.
But the child will never say that, if child is hungry, will never say I will go to play, or will never point to the ball. The child will definitely point to the feeding bottle,
Right.
because from the very beginning the child associates meaning with the objects and the functions also. Okay, so the child starts producing words. First, we call it pseudo production.
Right.
Pseudo production means the child starts babbling, and this pseudo production, actually it is not the actual production, but trying to produce.
Right.
I'll give you an example. A child was trying to speak the word piaggio. Piage. And then you will find he is not being able to produce it. The child will say it is paija. But the parents, they never scold the child. The mother never scolds the child. Rather, the mother encourages, "Acha, you want to take paija? So I'll give you paija. But do you know that piaja has certain rings around it? It is very hot, so you have to be very careful about it. Otherwise, you will have tears in your eyes and all." So now the child starts listening to the real production of the sound, and real production, then child tries to compare that whatever he is saying is different from what the mother is saying. the production of the sound. So gradually that autocorrection continues in the child, and the child starts producing the right pronunciation. So that kind of flexibility, that kind of space, that kind of encouragement that is given to the child. The mother never scolds that you have said something wrong. You have to say like this. There is no structured sentence the mother talks to the child. Another thing I want to tell you is that the child should have continuous exposure to the language, in the sense that we parents or we adults, we always whatever we are doing, everything is centers around the child.
Right.
Even when the mother is giving bath to a child, the mother speaks hundreds and thousands of words. For example, let's go, let's take bath, it is very hot, and there is a shower is there, and there is hot water, there is cold water, let us mix it, let us get the small towel and all. So the child knows that all these things are associated with bath. So now from the very beginning he knows that if a child wants to go to the bathroom or wants to take a bath, then comes running with the towel and gives to mama, and mama knows that the child wants to take bath, and says, "Chacha, you have got the towel, let's go." And there is a shampoo, there is a sabun, and many soap and all, many things that mother talks to the child. So in the process, the child is exposed to the language continuously and in context.
Right. So here Professor Sandhya taught how a child learns a particular language, how he associates words with objects and into his day-to-day activities. But here the question is, what is the significance of language learning?
So you will find that in school situation, you mean to
yes,
say.
in school situation.
In school situation, language learning plays a very important role. For example, we say that language is central to all learning, or there is centrality of language. So if a child is good in language, then will be good in other subjects also, because the child constructs knowledge using language. And the child understands other subjects also through language, and expresses through language, communicates through language. So language plays a very vital role and central role in the learning of the child. So initially the first few years, the primary years, every learning is language learning, because the child is learning language through mathematics, through environment studies, through all these activities, arts, games, play, and all this. So when we say that every teacher is a language teacher first, so it is very right that every teacher is a language teacher first, because whatever I am teaching or whatever subject I am handling in the class, I am doing it through language.
Right.
So my communication skill as a teacher has to be good. And second year, I must focus on language also, because every subject has a different kind of language, different kind of registers, words. So physics has a different set of language, science, chemistry has a different set of language, biology has a different set of language, even social science, history, geography, economics, all these have different sets of language, sets of words, we call it registers. And the child has to understand all this in the context of that particular subject. So it is very important that we must, as teachers, we should give importance to language first, and we are the language teachers first, and then comes the content.
Right. But when we talk about the government schools, we have often seen basically the Hindi speaking regions in Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, for example, if we take, there's a problem of students, they are not comfortable speaking English because that is their second language. So how they acquire language, and what should be the method that the teachers should adopt in teaching them that second language?
So as already I have told you that the child learns the first language or the mother tongue in a very stress-free atmosphere. Okay, the child learns a language without having any fear in mind that the child is learning the language. Unconsciously, the child acquires the language naturally.
Right.
Okay, and then the entire environment works for the child to learn the language. So the child first is exposed to language continuously. Second is that we call it input rich environment. The environment is input rich in the sense that everybody is contributing through storytelling, through taking them to different places, to for example to the playground, to the shop, and to somebody's house and all. We use language, we talk to the child, and we are with the child while we are and language is being used every aspect, every part of the life of the child. Okay, and then here we also talk about we should have patience while talking to the child, because the child cannot produce language immediately. So from the pseudo production the child goes to the actual production. So it takes time. So instead of making the child conscious that you are learning a language and you have to speak correctly is a crime. We cannot do that.
I mean, they should be permitted to commit mistake and they'll learn
exactly,
from that
exactly,
mistake.
because errors are the indicators of learning. If the child is perfect from the very beginning, so there is no scope for giving them any kind of intervention for improvement. No one is perfect. The language is a skill subject, and gradually you acquire the skill. So the child has to be exposed, and contextual all these input rich environment should be created for the child to learn the language, and the child has the freedom to commit error, and the errors are not to be criticized, not to be punished. Rather they should be encouraged to commit more errors. For example, like this small child who is not being able to pronounce the word pyaj. He was not being scolded by his mother. Rather, he was encouraged to speak the same and commit the error continuously. I'll give you one example, that a small child in Odisha, he was not being able to speak the word bhatta. Bhatta is rice. Okay, and he used to speak tato. And one morning he came and, Ma, I want me tato tai. Tato tai means bhatta khaibi. He could not speak. Then I said, Acha, you want to eat rice? Tato tai? Don't worry. Let us go to the kitchen and let us take bhatta. And bhatta is very hot. Don't touch it. And then continuously I told him. And for a week he listened to me that I am speaking bhatta. And after 4 days he said, Ki Mama, bhatta khai. So I never pointed out exactly. I never pointed out the mistake. Rather, I gave him the right model, and he spoke, and he spoke the right word. So there is always a scope for children to learn and correct themselves, and we must give them opportunities. And children are the creators of language also. They create many languages. Suppose you tell them this is a black cat. And that is a white shirt. Suppose you give them a black shirt, they will use words and they will say this is black shirt. So now they have the words and then they play with the words and they try to make new sentences. And one feels very happy when children are they're creating language, and they also create a kind of a sense of ownership that they have created some language.
So, you are emphasizing more on this thing that listening and speaking are more important than writing and reading.
No, I'm not saying listening and speaking are more important than reading and writing. Rather, listening and speaking, they come first in a language teaching or language education, or wherever the child learns. Since you have also learned your mother tongue, you have never gone to school to learn your mother tongue. No one goes to school to learn the mother tongue. The child automatically learns the mother tongue, how to speak, listens with understanding, and speaks. Then he goes to school. We call it oracy. And after that, the child goes to school. That is literacy. And in school, the child reads and writes. It becomes easier for a child to read and write if the first two skills are established in the child. That is why it is more important. So because whenever we go for second language teaching, because principles of language teaching is same for all subjects.
Right.
It is not only for mother tongue. So if this is applicable, or this finds results in mother tongue education or in learning a mother tongue, the same thing will apply to second language education. But the problem in our school system is that children are exposed to English in a very, very contrived situation. In a limited period of time, in a classroom. If you talk about government schools, it is only one period, and in one period, in 45 minutes, the children are exposed to English, and we want them to listen to it, we want them to speak, we don't want them to read and write also in 1 year's time, which is not possible, because a child, when the child is learning the mother tongue, the child takes almost a year or so to understand, to find the association and producing the pseudo the words.
So we can say that the second language should also be taught as we learn the first language or the mother tongue.
Otherwise, because maybe we call it silent period, we call it critical period. So if you know, we do not give them time, if you do not give them space, if you do not give them freedom, and we do not provide them with input-rich environment, it is very, very difficult for children to learn a second language. So second language should be learned keeping in mind all the principles of first language learning. For example, like I already told you, for example, this input-rich environment, and in the classroom should speak, the walls should speak. And there should be a reading corner, there should be storybooks, there should be ICT, there should be multimedia, there should be some kind of interaction and role play in the classroom and all. So the children will be exposed to language, children will be able to listen to the language. The more is the listening, better is speaking.
Right.
And more is the reading, better is writing.
Right. So we are continuously live streaming on YouTube as well. If you have any suggestion or query, you can ask the question over there. Ma'am, we have a number of viewers with us on YouTube as well, and one of the viewers, Muhammad Mehboob, has asked this question, that there is a problem of concentration when language is taught, that they are physically present in the classroom but they are not mentally present in the classroom. So what should be done to curb this situation?
So it's a very, very interesting and important question and observation also.
Right.
That is, we call it mind present and body present and mind absent.
Right.
But just now I was telling you that how you make your children learn a second language, English, in the classroom. Because this is a contrived classroom, and children, they are fluent in one language.
Right.
Now they will learn the second language, English. And to make the children interested in language class or in English teaching class, you have to design activities. You have to design role plays. For example, there is a story. Storytelling is the best method of giving language to the children and making the children concentrate and also be, participate in language learning. So we can change this story into a small skit and make the children enact in the class.
Right.
The children will do it. And when the children start participating in the class, when the children start interacting with each other, and when they are giving the charge to deliver a dialogue in the class, so they get more interested. So our classroom should not be passive, they should be active.
Right. So it's generally one-way conversation, that teacher is giving information and the student are acquiring. So it should be made two-way.
Two-way, and make the children participate. We call it in child-centered learning, activity-based learning. It is based on that. That you make the children interested and design the activities in such a way that children are interested, and it is of their level. If something is below, children will find it very uninteresting. If it is above their level, then they find it very, very difficult to understand and to participate also.
Right, right.
So whenever as a teacher I am designing activities for my students, I should be able to do it keeping the children's interest, age in the mind.
Right.
And also the context, also the environment, child's environment. So the kind of activities I will design here in Delhi, and the kind of is not be useful for child who is studying in Odisha or in a tribal region.
Right.
So I must design the activity, I must take the context in such a, choose the context in such a way that children are interested in.
Right.
So that, I mean, and the second thing is that children should feel free to commit errors, that as I have told you.
Exactly.
The moment they say, no, I'll be wrong, if I say something, right, everybody will laugh at me. So we have to tell the children from the very beginning that English is not our language. We are committing error, even elders also,
Exactly.
they are committing errors. So no one is perfect. So you do it.
Yes.
You try to, I mean, speak.
But it is often like the teachers and parents emphasize that the student should speak grammatically right English, and the student is in constant pressure that if I am not using the right grammar, I am speaking wrong English. So do you think this is right?
So actually this is, the parents and teachers are wrong, not the students.
Okay.
Because whenever we are learning a language, we are not learning the grammar first. As you said that you learnt Urdu from your parents, and when you are 3-year-old you started speaking the language and fluently.
Right.
If you look at the children, they will, when they are in like when they are in second year or third year, or 3-year-old or 2-year-old, they will speak very very fluently. They will never commit any error. For example, मैं गई थी, मैं जाऊंगी, और कल मुझे जाना है.
So at least they are good at tense.
They're good at tense, but nobody has taught them, and nobody has taught them to use a particular set of words to the mother, and the same set of words they don't use for the father. So mother is more close to, they speak something, they use some other words. So children are very smart and intelligent also, because they are thinking individuals, they observe. Okay, so we must encourage them to observe, to use I mean whatever they want to say, without giving any kind of pressure that no, you must have, you should use this grammatically correct sentence. So because grammar never comes first.
Right.
We talk about language learning is meaning making. So children, they first learn the meaning of things. So suppose this is a fan and I am feeling very hot and I will ask you to switch on the fan. So then the child has observed me, has seen me. The next time when the child is feeling a bit hot, we'll look at, we'll point to the finger to the fan, because he has associated fan with a meaning, that this fan gives air and that will cool me, or I'll be comfortable. So this is actually the child, gradually the child understands that these things, these objects, they also associate, create, and there is some meaning associated to the object. So when they are using that in the sentence, they also create meaning.
Right.
Okay. So when the child is learning a language, first the meaning comes, then the form comes. Okay. So initially when we are designing all these activities in NCERT and in our focus paper also, in our NC of 2005 also, we have told that children should not be forced to learn grammar first.
Okay, so you mentioned about NCF 2005, that is National Curriculum Framework. So there it has been more emphasized about the constructivist approach. So what is that and how should it be implemented in the classroom?
Actually, constructivist approach is that children are the critical thinkers. They construct their own knowledge. But opportunity should be provided to them to create knowledge, to construct knowledge. Right. And language is the tool through which all the knowledge is constructed. So language is plays a very very vital role and important role. But how, like in this constructivist approach that we have taken in NCF 2005, how it is helpful in learning language? Okay, so here when we say that the child is the creator of knowledge, the child is also creator of language. I'll give you one example, that a small child, all through she was with her grandparents, and her mother was studying outside for 3 years. She was doing her post-graduation. So when the mother came, the grandfather said that I am your nana, and this nani whom he was calling as mama, said ki this mama is your nani, and the new entrant, the girl who has entered just now is Gudiya, she is your mama. And the child got confused. I said, Nana, Mama, and Gudiya, Nani, he was so confused, she was so confused. And after 3 days, she came to her grandfather and said, ki, Nana, now I know what to call to whom. Okay, and he said, this is Gudiya Mama, and this is Nani Mama, and you are Nana. Okay. Nobody has taught her. So children, they are the creator of language. So opportunity should be given to them. So the opportunity should be through through reading stories, giving them multimedia exposure, ICT exposure, recitation of the poem, and even telling and retelling of the stories. Different activities can be designed. We can design. Participating in theatre, participating in art, and because all these are integrated, even they are participating in the art or in the sports or they are in the field, so they are using language. So they sometimes what they say, they combine these words and speak a new word, which you will think, ये तो मैंने कभी उसको बताया नहीं था, I have never said that. So now, and another important thing is that we are not talking about English alone.
Right.
We are talking English stands with, like English is one of the languages in India. English doesn't stand alone, it stands with other languages. So that multilingual aspect also we are bringing into teaching of English in the classroom. So in the classroom, if the children are allowed to use mother tongue in order to express themselves, then the question that the gentleman had asked is answered. Because you cannot make the child speak only in English in the classroom, because language, the child has not acquired that much of language to answer. So you have to give him the opportunity to use his own language or any like mother tongue, and you make it give him the sense of security, that yes, if I use my mother tongue also, my teacher is not going to scold me. So because, and then gradually listening to the English, he will switch over from English to from mother tongue to English. So that kind of opportunity should be given to every child.
Right.
Otherwise, it is very difficult. You cannot make the child speak English in 1 year or in a month. It is very difficult. So every teacher should understand how languages are learned and how a second language is learned.
Right.
Because second language is that kind of exposure the child doesn't get when learning a second language. So how can we give that kind of exposure in a limited period of time in the classroom situation? That is very important.
Right, so it is the responsibility of the teacher to create a perfect environment where the child can learn a particular language, specifically if that is the second language. So now the last question here comes is about the assessment part. How should language be assessed?
This is very important. Assessment in language teaching and learning is very important, and now in NCERT we are working on this, and we never want our children to be assessed only at the end of the year.
Right.
Or in the half yearly examination. We want children to be assessed continuously throughout the year and in the class. So assessment is integrated in the classroom process. So if you look at the learning outcome that we have brought out in NCERT, learning outcome for classes 1 to 8, you will find that this in the process the assessment is integrated. And we say that language is a skill subject, okay, and we are focusing on the competency, like listening, speaking, reading and writing, critical thinking. So once it is like the child is doing some activities, for example, is participating in role play. So then the teacher can also say that yes, this is a role play, and the spoken ability of the child is assessed, but without making the child conscious that you are being assessed. And the teacher knows that this is the area where the child is lacking, and can put more can scaffold, can support, and or can make his peers to support him to speak well. So in the process the child doesn't feel bad that I am being assessed and I am less than others, or I lack certain activities. Rather, in a group, when the children are working together, they learn from each other and they try to again correct each other. So that is very important than teacher pointing out you are wrong. Rather, the child should understand, know that looking at others, should know that where what is wrong and how he can improve upon it. So assessment is never, I mean, should not be one time, rather it should be integrated and it should be continuous and comprehensive assessment.
So here one of our viewers, Rajiv, has asked that how we implement the direct method of teaching English language without emphasizing more on the grammar part.
So again, direct method, and now we are not talking about direct method, because in NCERT we talk about integrated approach. Okay. And we also say that eclectic approach. If a particular in a class there are so many, I mean, like types of children are there. Some children can learn through, I mean, auditory, like through touch and through viewing and feeling and all that. So there are variety of learning situations are there for children. And if you want the child to learn a language, instead of only sticking to direct approach or direct method, you can go for eclectic. For example, sometimes this audiolingual is I mean, suitable. Some depending on the need of the class, need of the child, you can change your methods. Okay.
Right.
And but remember that always make the child participate and speak in the class, and also be active in the class.
Thank you so much, Professor Sandhya Sahu. We would have loved to continue this discussion further, but we are running short of time. Tomorrow we'll come up with another topic with another expert. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.